Chapter 9. Catch That Rabbit! Mandy and James raced across the playground. Blackie was far away by now. Mandy lost sight of him as the other children began chasing after Laura's rabbit. The playground was in an uproar. "Timmy, come back!" yelled Peter, running across the playground. He was in such a rush he didn't see Sarah hurrying toward the school gates with Licorice in her arms. "Watch out!" Mandy yelled, but it was too late. Peter and Sarah collided, and Licorice jumped out of Sarah's arms. The little puppy stood for a moment, then ran off across the playground and disappeared in the crowd. Peter barely noticed. He kept running, trying to catch up with Timmy. "Oh, catch him! Catch Licorice!" Sarah shouted as Mandy came up to her. She turned to Mandy. "What if Licorice gets lost or someone steps on him?" "Don't worry, we'll get him," said Mandy. "Blackie has run away too." Sarah looked really angry. "I don't care about Blackie," she said. "It's Licorice I'm worried about." She looked at her watch. "Mom will be here in a minute to get me. She'll be furious. She hates it if I keep her waiting." Mandy looked at Sarah's angry expression. She was only concerned about her own pet and being late for her mom. She didn't care about anyone else. "Come on!" James shouted as he caught up with Mandy. "I think I saw Blackie heading for the garbage cans." "It was probably Licorice," said Sarah. "Let me see," and she dashed off. By this time, the playground was full of people running back and forth, trying to catch the loose pets. Mandy and James ran around the school and into the yard on the other side where the garbage cans were. "There's Timmy!" Peter cried, and ran after the terrier. "Catch him!" he yelled to a group of children. They fanned out, forming a half circle. Peter drove for Timmy and caught him. "Gotcha!" he said. "There's the rabbit," said James, darting behind a garbage can. "Careful, James!" Mandy shouted. "Don't scare him or he'll panic." But James was hot on the trail of Laura's rabbit. He cornered it in the bricked-off area that housed the garbage cans. "Don't scare him," Mandy said. James looked at her. "Maybe you'd better do this," he said. Mandy knelt down very quietly and held her hand out to the terrified rabbit. The little animal looked at her, its eyes huge with fear. "There now, Nibbles," Mandy said softly. "There's nothing to be afraid of." The rabbit wiggled his nose, sniffing the air, then took a tiny step toward her. Just at that moment, a small black puppy ran into view. "Blackie!" yelled James, and the rabbit's ears pricked up. Mandy moved fast, gathering the rabbit into her arms before it could make another dash away. James tried to catch the puppy, but Sarah was there before him. "This isn't Blackie," she said, scooping the puppy into her arms. "It's Licorice. Anyone can see that." Mandy was busy soothing the frightened rabbit. Laura came up to her, tears running down her face. "Oh, Nibbles is all right, isn't he?" she said. "He isn't hurt?" Mandy smiled at her. "He's just a bit frightened," she said. "He'll be fine once you get him home." Laura took the rabbit carefully from her and headed for the school gates. Mandy turned to James. "Poor Nibbles," she said. "He's got the scare of his life." But James wasn't listening. He was staring at Sarah. "How can you be so sure that's Licorice?" he said. Sarah looked at him scornfully. "Because Blackie had a collar on," she said, "and this puppy doesn't." Mandy looked at the puppy in Sarah's arms. It certainly looked like Blackie. "Blackie?" she said. The little puppy gave a short bark and scrabbled his paws against Sarah's sleeve. Sarah turned and began to walk away. "I tell you this is Licorice," she said. Mandy frowned. The puppy did look like Blackie. But maybe Sarah was right. After all, she should know her own puppy. Besides, Blackie had a collar and Licorice didn't. "Sorry," she called after Sarah. "It's just that they're so alike." Sarah sniffed. "Thought you said you'd be able to tell the difference," she called back. "You're supposed to know so much about animals." Mandy blushed. "I've never said that," she said quietly. There was the sound of a car horn tooting, and Sarah ran off toward the school gates and her mother's car. Mandy looked around. The playground had emptied out. Everyone had found their pets. Only Mandy and James were left. Mandy turned to James. He was biting his lip. "I'm sure that was Blackie," he said. "But Blackie had a collar on," said Mandy. James looked at her. "I loosened his collar earlier," he said. "I thought it was too tight." "So he could have slipped out of it?" said Mandy. "Oh, James, why didn't you say so?" James looked really worried. Sarah seemed so sure of herself, he said. I don't know if I'm right. I just think I'm right. She rushed off so fast I didn't really get a chance to get a good look at the puppy. Mandy felt sorry for him. Sarah always thought she knew best. She was always so sure she was right that she made you believe her. Mandy looked around. So where's Licorice? She said. If that really was Blackie, then Licorice must be around her somewhere. All we have to do is solve the puzzle. We gotta find the other puppy. Once we have both, we'll be able to tell the difference. James saw something lying in the corner of the playground. Look, he said, going over and picking it up. Blackie's collar and leash, said Mandy. It looks as if I might be right, said James. Sarah must have taken the wrong puppy home with her. That isn't so important at the moment, said Mandy. At least we know that one puppy is safe. What do you mean? Said James. Mandy turned to him, her eyes worried. James, it doesn't matter which one it is. There's a puppy missing, and we have to find him.